Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers, and I'm looking at an excellent book today from Hart Publishing. It's on TRIPS. It's a trip down memory lane, if you like. TRIPS being trade-related aspects of intellectual property. It's this book here. About 500 pages, something like that. Very heavy. It's got a subtitle, Globalisation of Intellectual Property Rights and Access to Medicines, and is written by a professor. Now I hope I have the name correct, Professor Hiroko Yamane, and she's produced, I think, an excellent statement on where we are at the moment with the global activities of IP. We've given it the title, Protecting IPRs Globally, that's intellectual property rights globally. That's really what the book starts out to do. Then it uncovers the problems that we actually have with this area of law, and of course the difficulties of trying to look at something not just on a territory by territory basis or even a continental basis, but actually globally. What we say though is this: if you're reading this and you're not in the legal profession, or not yet, you probably wonder what TRIPS means, and as I said, it's the trade-related aspects of IP. Business, the creativity that accompanies it, and the intellectual property that results from it have all probably in most respects gone global, and so have most issues relating to IP. In the wake of a number of significant directives and agreements, such IP issues will invariably, in our view, impact on world trade in different ways for the immediate and long-term future as the world develops, which is inevitable. Now the author, Professor Yamane, in her thorough and analytical explorations of such issues, touches on the potential impact created by a regulated IP environment on different areas referred to as the industrialized nations, the developing nations, and the leading emerging economies such as India and China. Having perused her comments for the most part, we gather that she feels that the one-size-fits-all policy, or policies for IP regulation worldwide, will not necessarily benefit businesses in all countries or trading environments. Well, that's a matter, of course, for debate, and of course that is also the dilemma. Nonetheless, with the protection of IPRs having become an established global issue now, the TRIPS agreements have evolved with a view to outlining and indeed establishing minimum standards for IPR protection for members of the World Trade Organization, WTO, over a vast range of creative endeavours, from IT to the pharmaceutical and biological sciences, which of course in their own right are subject to a lot of controversy. It's interesting that the author, and presumably the impressive global team of IP experts she mentions in her acknowledgement, takes a cautious approach here, warning that the benefits of TRIPS are more questionable in poorer countries where national infrastructure for research and development and social protection are inadequate, and the cost of innovation is high. Well, I've added a to that because I think we've got to look very carefully at the way we go about things. I don't necessarily subscribe, as a self-determination point of view, what we can attribute to perhaps the poorer nations. But however, that's another issue for the professor. IPR protection, of course, she then goes on to argue, should be supporting domestic policies for innovation and investment. At the same time, she advocates the benefits of international cooperation on IP issues. Now, we're going to have that. It doesn't matter what happens, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, whatever it is. We're going to have to start thinking about this sort of thing in a much more adult manner and a global manner in the future. Bearing such diverse views in mind, therefore, Yamane's extremely erudite book does much to shed light on the various attitudes worldwide to the role of IP rights as incentives for innovation and investment, whilst also examining the ongoing worldwide debate over IPRs themselves. It's a copiously researched and monumentally impressive magnus opus, and this book will undoubtedly provide a welcome and authoritative contribution to the debate, particularly probably among specialist IP practitioners. It's meticulously footnoted, as I've indicated. There's an excellent index, a really proper index at the back, and it's got good useful tables of cases and so forth. So if you're in any way involved in cross-border matters relating to IP, this is your book. It's got its global perspective, which should provide, I think, a useful and thought-provoking addition to your professional library. So thank you to, and I hope I got her name right, Professor Yamane, and to Hart Publishing for an excellent book. Bye-bye.